Good afternoon, this is Tess from Marmot, and today I have very exciting news for you. Next week, I am going to be interviewing a very special guest named Maha Daoudi. Since she retired from the day-to-day commodity business in 2017, Maha Daoudi is a very active entrepreneur and private investor in selected industries such as fintech, biotech, sustainable luxury, arts, music, commodities, pretty much anything, you name it. And she also holds several advisory board memberships mandates where she advises hand-picked businesses in their growth development strategies. And she also has 20 years experience in the commodities industry across the entire value chain, pretty much all over the world. As one of the very few senior executive women in that industry, she has an established track record in trading, developing, structuring, and financing commodities and infrastructure-related assets. Beyond her financial skills, Maha dedicates her time to social impact initiatives and mentoring in the area of health, diversity, education, and arts. We are extremely excited to have Maha here next week, and we really hope you'll stick around to watch the interview. See you then. Good afternoon, Maha. Thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
We were very looking forward to this for the past few weeks. So why don't we start off by you telling us a bit about yourself, about where you're from, a bit about your past.
Yeah. So I'm a big mix actually. I'm French, Moroccan, Turkish, Tunisian. I was born and raised in Morocco till age 17.
Okay.
So I would say, a Southerner, so to say. I went to the French school in Morocco, so naturally when I turned 17 and I had my baccalaureate, and I left Morocco to study in France. And I'm 46 years old.
Yeah. You look 23.
Well, I'm working hard on it, One of my main, let's say, aim is to, as we say, age gracefully.
Well, you've done it very well so far.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, what did you do after leaving when you were 17, you said?
Yeah, so I studied in France actually. Mm-hmm. I had a master's degree in international business and strategic management. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 22, I had my master's degree and I started working at that time.
Okay, and what did you start working in?
Well, basically it was a very interesting thing because it shows something in life. We have plans, we have ideas, but it never turns out to be happening as per your plans. So basically I wanted initially to work in finance, and I was about to go to Malaysia with one of the large tech companies. But I have a Moroccan citizenship as well as a French citizenship, and at that time Morocco realized that they had many potential Moroccan citizens that were staying abroad, and they wanted to do something to bring them back to Morocco. So I was approached by a search company. Mm-hmm. And actually that was to work for one of the largest Moroccan conglomerates. And in the mining field, which I wouldn't have thought about a second.
Sure.
And so basically they flew me to Morocco, they flew me to one of the mines there, and I was just fascinated by the complexity of that industry. And I was really also very touched by the hard working and dedication it requests, and actually to produce things that we all need on a daily basis, because you name it, your phone, your house, everything. You need commodities for everything. And so I decided to go for that, and actually I started my career spending 4 years on sites on mines. This is how I started. Yeah.
Okay, and what were you doing on the mines?
I was doing cost control basically, and productivity ratio optimization. So I was going on the ground, following the dampers, taking the ratios, calculating, seeing how we could improve that. It was a very, 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 very interesting first experience.
I'm sure, and that's very rare. I've actually done
it. Is totally. It is. And I must say also that at that time the law didn't change yet in Morocco. Actually, that time women were still not allowed to go underground, and I was somehow used as a trailblazer. And actually, it was a very, very nice experience for a young lady of 22 years
Wow.
old. And I'm a very hands-on person. I'm very pragmatic, and that was a perfect fit because you don't find anything else more, let's say, pragmatic than working in a mine.
And were you were you the only woman there, or?
I was the only woman.
Wow.
I was the only woman. Yeah, it was extremely interesting. I was the only woman, and you know, well, when you go down, you have to wear this outfit that you were. I mean, in French they say bleu de travail. I don't know how you say it in English. And with the castle from far, you couldn't see. I was.
You could only look like everyone else.
Yeah. Wow. And sometimes I was seeing the reactions, you know, from far.
When they see you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was extremely interesting. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. I had no idea. Okay, and then so that's how you started your career. What about after that? How did you?
Well, basically, after that, so I started in the mines. Then I had a very, very good career evolution. After a few years, then I was moved to the headquarters of the company, and I was in charge of so management control and also development planning. And thereafter, and this with the presidents of the company.
Wow.
And then after, I was given the responsibility over all the marketing and sales activities of the group. So I was promoted as a director, and I was also in charge of all the port terminals. So the dockers and all these this very interesting rock and roll aspects of a business, but very, very, very important to know and actually to touch. And I then moved to Switzerland with this Moroccan conglomerate because they used to work historically with a Swiss trading house, but the main shareholder of that company retired because he turned 85. And at that time, they asked me to come to Switzerland to actually start and manage their trading arm.
Wow.
Which I did.
That's very impressive.
I did.
How old were you at that point?
Well, it was in 2005. So I was, and I'm from very end 1975. So I was 29, turning 30 at that time.
That was impressive.
It was extremely interesting because this is where I could also learn and dive deep into all, let's say, the financial aspects of commodities trading. Because I was more on the production side before, more on the physical side. And that's very, very interesting to be able to combine the two because you get then the best of the two worlds. And it's very rare. Normally in the trading business, you have people mostly coming more from operations in trading houses, so who do not have the production and the technicity of the products background. So that was extremely interesting. And what was also very, very interesting is that I had the chance to cover a large panel of commodities because I did gold, silver, zinc, copper, lead, arsenic, fluorspar. At that time arsenic you could still trade it. Also nickel, cobalt, so many different commodities, and that's also not so usual in the commodities trading world. So I had indeed, that allowed me to have a very, very unique profile in that area. And then after, naturally I found it was getting small for me, the perimeter with this Moroccan conglomerate. And one of my, I had as customers, I had the largest international trading houses, and then I decided to join one of them. And I had a very, very challenging yet extremely interesting career in then one of the largest trading houses, Trafigura. And before I left Trafigura and before I retired from the day-to-day commodities business, I was heading their largest metal book, which is the copper book. And I did that for many years with a large team under management and flying more or less the 5 continents every week.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I've been extremely, extremely happy to enjoy an extremely interesting and fulfilling.
I'm sure, and also
career.
I'm sure in Trafigura you must have also been one of the only females.
We had some female, but more in let's say in administrative roles, but in the trading
in the
heading
itself.
books, I was the only one.
Wow, that's really interesting.
I was the only one, yeah.
And did you ever, come across any difficulties with that, or did you, ever feel,
You mean how it made me feel to be the only woman in that
Exactly.
environment?
Exactly. Did you ever feel uncomfortable? Did you ever feel,
I mean, I am a person. I mean, the highest values for me are effort and accomplishment. And these values are above everything. So I've never seen myself from a gender perspective. I've always seen myself from the competence angle. So I didn't, I didn't put or set any boundaries because I was different genders. So I didn't position at all myself in that direction. I really positioned myself as someone who had a lot of competences and expertise and to bring to the table, and I did work very hard to make the difference, and this is the way I've made it, and I've never let myself look at or assess any situation or potential career developments from the gender
That's really great.
point of view. Yeah.
That's really great. But in that sense, even if you see yourself in that way and you never put yourself in, it never made you feel a certain way, but did you ever come across, any difficulties by being the only woman? Even when you were in Morocco, was it ever...
I mean, of course. I remember in Morocco at a certain stage I was working on a gold development project, and they didn't have toilet or showers for women. So you had to wait, that the guys finished to be a shower, and that was
Wow.
But as you can imagine, mining industry is not a female industry.
Yes, but...
I had another, and there is also one thing I'd like to say, even if what I was saying before is that if there is a will, there is a way, and competence is above all. But there are indeed some realities of this world we are living in, and physically women are not as strong or built the same way as men. So once, I had also a very, very challenging night. It was my birthday, by the way, and we were working. And when you're on the mine, you work night, and
yeah, I'm sure day and night.
Yeah, you work during the day, but if there is something that is needed, then you are on the mining site. You can go underground even at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. in the afternoon.
Did you live there? Did you live on the mine
Yeah,
site?
you live on the mine site, definitely.
Okay.
And then we had some challenges to discuss and to look at. So we went underground. It was early evening, and then there was an issue with the access of the mine that got blocked, and also with the water pumping, and then the mine started flooding. And I ended up being stuck 500 meters underground with 12 guys, and with the water going up, and then by the end the water was here before we could be released and go out. And also another more basic example is when you fly the 5 continents every week, as a woman, it's a different challenge physically.
Of course, absolutely.
Because we have hormones, we have all those things. So you have to face that of course. But again, if there is a will, there is a way.
That is impressive. That is really impressive. I feel like most people would have given up. So that's really, really impressive. Tell us a bit about your start with investing money.
Okay, so I'd say I started investing money when I was 25.
Okay.
And my first investment, so my first investment is, I hate to pay rent. Because for me, paying rent is throwing money out of the window, because if you buy an asset, you always end up having a lower cost than if you pay rent, So the first thing I did when I was 25, I bought an apartment. So at that time I was still in Morocco. I bought an apartment, and I was really, really excited to be able to do that. I had to stretch all my possibilities, but I was super happy not to pay rent and actually to save, because buying a real estate, you save money. Paying a rent, you throw money out there. And also 1 year after, actually, I bought at that time shares in the company I was working for. So these were my first investments. And both of them turned out to be very good investments. I exited already both of them, and they were good. So these are my 2 first investments.
And did you live in that apartment?
I did, but not for so long, but I did. I did, but then after I moved to Switzerland, and then I left the apartment.
Okay. And then what about later on in time? You know, how did your journey as an investor work?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because I would say that my, let's say, real journey as an investor started when I started 5 years ago, when I actually left the day-to-day commodity business. This is really where it seriously started, as we say. And I think what I did, I mean, because I think it's very important as well, whatever you do, to take the time to learn, understand the things before starting playing them. So I took actually the first couple of years really to get expert knowledge in the field, because I had a knowledge, but I didn't have all the tools you need to really be able to interact in that field on a daily basis and with larger positions. So I really took the time to dive deep into it. I did read a lot, but what was also extremely useful at that time is that I have built over time an extremely interesting network of people who are working also in finance for many years, or in some cases decades. So I did spend a lot of time, and I did learn a lot from them also, and from the conversations with them, because finance is also can be an industry that is not necessarily very well informed if you are not an insider. So it's very important to have that access, and I was extremely lucky. And again, this is where I want to point out the fact that having a community is so important when you want to enter and start doing something, whether in finance or whether in something else. And it's very important also to have a structured approach, an analytical approach, you know, to address it in, let's say, the right way.
Of course, so and also like this, you have people to rely on, people. Yeah. So would you say that other people, like some of your network, helped you to understand how it worked? Or?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely, because there are things you cannot figure out, you know, if you don't have insiders sharing the information with you and sharing actually their experiences with you. That's what and I was extremely lucky to have access to a very interesting network in that sense.
That's really nice. And what about, could you tell us a bit about the asset classes that you have?
Sure. I mean, now, so 5 years after, I am actually invested in equities, in bonds, in alternative, in cryptos, in commodities, in private markets.
Okay.
So you name it. I think I have today a position across all asset classes. And I think it's very important as well, because I think diversification is key when you address this topic. So today I'm invested in most of the asset classes, and I mean, from fields that are going from tech to also music, arts, because you know music, arts are extremely interesting. They are decorrelated assets that are always very good to have in portfolio, and of course commodities, and it's very much one of the big flavor of the day against inflation. Yeah, so I have a position across all asset class, and I'm not a passive investor. You know, I don't like necessarily to go to too much structured products, because you know I'm a very simple person. I need to understand where I do
of course
invest
where
my
you're
money.
Putting your money.
So when it gets too complicated, you know, I don't like it, and I don't think. I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't generate much value. Normally, when it's very complicated, it generates much more value to the people who are selling that to you. Sure. So I'm a very simple person. I have a very diversified investment portfolio today.
And do you base it a bit on, you know, what you like and what you don't like, or do you also, I mean, do you do the reading behind it?
Yeah, I mean, not only about what I like, what I don't like, because I mean, you can't address that certainly. But I did I did a big work in doing some analytics about sectors, about thematics, etc. And I defined a strategy. And then after I've been implementing that strategy. I mean, of course, updating it when necessary if market conditions are proving that it needs updating. But still, I started defining a strategy in the medium to long term, and I think it's extremely important to have this framework. And my strategy is based on my views on the market and on my sectorial view as well, on the basis of all the information I could get via my network, or the analysis I could do on the basis of materials I can read. So I have, all I have subscriptions to all the interesting writers, and I read a lot. I'm a person, I read a lot, and this is how actually I developed my strategy.
That's really good. That's very interesting. I think that's really good, to actually spend your time and invest, your time to look into it, to understand it, because I think often what happens is people just want their returns quite quickly, so they don't go far enough to actually look into it and how can this benefit me always. So that's good.
I always say rewards, they don't come from heaven or from the sky. It's all about efforts and commitment and will as well. You have to be willing. If you want to do something properly, I think you have also to be emotionally interested, to feel for that things and to develop that emotion, that passion. It takes understanding, it takes time to gather all the information that take you there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then jumping quickly back to the commodity market.
Yes.
Why did you stop? And could you maybe tell us a little bit more about it? How it works and.
Well, basically, I only stopped the day-to-day part of it. Because I'm going to tell you, I was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I had also some challenges, personal challenges, that actually put me in front of the situation that I wanted to have a life also and enjoy life, and that's very much the reason why. And I feel extremely lucky that I could retire in my early 40s, and I feel blessed for that. But that doesn't mean I'm not involved in commodities any longer. I am very much involved in commodities, but as an investor now, and not on a daily business. And I would say more now than ever, even because, as you know, we are entering an era of inflationary pressure, and commodities are a good way to protect yourself against inflation as an investor. So I am definitely in the commodity, the commodity market and investing in that market for sure.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about your personal outlook on the commodities in terms of the Ukraine war and everything that's happening at the moment with the war?
Sure, with pleasure. I don't have the crystal ball, but I have views for sure. Well, basically, I think it's very important to come back, to rewind a few months and talk about the situation already before the war. So I think we had some major structural forces out there. So first of all, a lack of investment in the supply of commodities. So a major underinvestment in the supply of commodities. And this basically combined with a push on the whole energy transition, let's say, strategy and how to get rid of fossil fuels, and a lot of policies supporting that move. So that somehow was the situation. And these actually structural forces actually got finally combined with some, I would say, event-driven additional forces that exacerbated a bit the market, the commodities market situation. And the event-driven forces, you had, of course, all the effects of the pandemics, whether on the demand, but also on the whole logistics and flow of materials around the world, and sometimes creating some large bottlenecks out there. And unfortunately, the war in Ukraine actually got added onto that situation, and this actually is led to a market situation which is actually relatively tight in commodities, and with, as you probably heard, some price increase and a lot of volatilities in the commodities prices out there. And basically war in Ukraine actually did emphasize even more the underlying effects and accelerated the shock. But it's very important also to mention something is that the whole rhetoric around energy transition is, I mean, extremely interesting, and I'm definitely committed to a better world, better climate, better environments. But there are the limits of what is feasible technically.
Of course.
And the reality is that yes, today you have the electric vehicles that actually did progress a lot from a technological point of view, and it is going for sure. But you have a lot of other topics like hydrogen, etc., which are not yet mature from a technical point of view. So we cannot live without the fossil fuels, and we won't be able to live without the fossil fuels in the short to medium term.
Of course, absolutely.
And one has to be really careful with this whole rhetoric about the climate and the energy transition. So I mean, basically, in my case, and this is actually how I deployed my strategy, I'm pretty much invested in energy, in fossil fuel related energies in the short to medium terms. And I'm not going to lie to you, actually, this is what made some good money over the last months. And in the longer run, I'm very much invested in all the commodities that are playing a major role in the energy transition, so which are copper, aluminium, and lithium, and nickel, and cobalt. And I mean, how I play those things, I mean, I'm not going to play them with the price, because to be honest with you, especially in an environment as it is today, it's extremely difficult to have any strong price view, and you have a lot of volatility. So I think it's risky to go that way, but you can still play it via other asset class, like via equities, or even sometimes in the private market, or via also some bonds. And it's extremely important to be very, very careful when you select. You have to look at primary plays, so that you know what you are buying. Because for example, some mining companies are multi-commodities, so you cannot really get exposure just to the things you want to get exposure to. And I think it's also very important to look at another aspect of the things. One of the reality today is this so-called deglobalization. I think the nations realize that when it comes to some strategic materials, they are very much relying on foreign countries, and they are really rethinking that. And actually, there was a few weeks ago a report published by the Defense Agency in the United States, where they listed some commodities that where they were dependent from foreign countries, and they are now pushing all efforts to secure some supply for those commodities. And in the strategy, I think it's very important also to go in that direction and to see what are the plays, or what are the assets that are going to play a main role in this deglobalization trend that is a trend to stay for sure. So this is another leg of in my opinion, a good commodity strategy now. And I mean, it's very early to say at this stage who would be the winners and who would be the losers. But I mean, clearly the winners are the energy producers and the fossil fuel producers, because with what happened, the price went to the roof, and they benefited from that. And obviously China also, because China may be able to buy cheap some things that some other countries do not want to buy, and they started already positioning themselves accordingly. Unfortunately, the losers, and to be very honest with you, so far the loser has not been, in my opinion, Russia, because all the sanctions that have been taken so far didn't affect yet the energy or fossil fuel sector in Russia. I mean, there are of course some discussions now at the EU level to finally make a step to ban oil from Russia, but it's not it's not not there. So the issue is that, in my opinion, the sanctions that have been taken so far did affect more the Western world rather than China when it comes to commodities, because with that situation and then the sanction and the whole, let's say, effect, it pushed the price up. And the reality is that if you are a producer of a commodity and you have an asset or a factory to run with who is employing thousands and thousands of people. You don't just go naked, so you hedge forward a portion of your position, and it's normal. And on that position, actually, those people got really challenged, because with the price going up like that, they had to face some very large margin calls, and they had to finance very large margin calls, and that stretched their situation and added a new challenge for them to tackle. And I think that has been very challenging for some producers, but also for some trading houses that are in the middle and are also exposed to these margin calls. And you probably heard about the story around the nickel and the LME even stopping the trade, etc. And this actually basically affected a lot the Western world and not necessarily Russia. But again, it's still very early. Let's see. I think time will tell. But clearly, in market configuration as it is today, having a strategy that is involving a commodity play is very important, because again, it's probably one of the best way to protect yourself against inflation. And I am definitely tackle it as well with my knowledge and my own views that I just shared with you right now.
Thank you. That was extremely interesting. That was a very good answer. That was really insightful. Also for me, honestly, I had no idea about all of that.
So you're gonna start investing in commodities?
I am, absolutely. First thing I'm gonna do when I leave this room.
Good.
Another question I wanted to ask you is, why would you say gold is the main player when it comes to mutual funds?
Well, it's a historical thing as well, because actually gold has always been a safe haven value, and gold has always been reacting or playing pretty much like a currency, and that's why you have it as a main player in mutual funds. And so far it's been the case. Now we'll have to see how things are going to play, because in the last weeks, the last months, it was not so obvious. So it's now very interesting, because you have some funds out there that are trying to combine gold and Bitcoin, saying that if they combine the two, then it's maybe more safer haven than... but you know, I think we are really going through very exciting times at the moment, because a lot of questions out there needs to be answered, and again, you know, we can, you know, try to reflect on the things and get super smart, etc. But it's new times, and in these new times, you know, new trends and new directions will play out, and it's extremely interesting to be able to see that and see how things are going to play.
No, and I think also for someone like you, for example, who has, you know, so much experience in finances and in all this, you know, this industry, must be very interesting to see how it plays out and how it changes.
It is, but I think it's also very important when you have experience, also to sometimes, you know, put a bit of distance to your experience and
to be able to learn the new.
Exactly, it's very much again. I think it's very much again about learning and earning additional understanding of things. And for me, it's about life as well. Life without learning is meaningless.
Well, that's good you say so. That's why we're all here, because we want to learn about it. No, it's true. And also, I think it's good to, you know, it's good because you stay on your feet, you keep learning, you know, and you grow your knowledge. So that's really good. And okay, so next, we wanted to ask you, could you maybe tell us a bit about how you choose the financial service providers that you currently work with?
Oh yeah, that's very interesting. You know, as I was telling you, I'm a very structured, pragmatic person. So when I had to choose financial service provider, I mean, I did a beauty contest. You know, yeah, I can call that a beauty contest. Actually, I went around and I met about 15 providers.
Really?
Large, medium, smaller size, and I had some criterias, and I did sit down with each of them, and then I had a table. With a scorecard, you know, and giving back. I remember, and it was a very interesting, actually, journey, because I wanted also, I think it's talking about service providers. I think, of course, it's important to have a bank, but I think it's very important not to work only with banks and to have also other type of counterparts like wealth managers, asset managers, etc. So I knew I wanted a mix. So in that beauty context, out of the 15 counterparts, I mean, half of them were banks and half were wealth manager, and it was extremely interesting. What I can tell you is I did select in the meantime, but if I have some takeaways of that journey, and if I to share with you, they'll be basically that I think the issue still today is that the investor is not put at the center. It's more they are still in a logic of push strategies. They have services, they have products, and they want to push them through you. While it should really become a pull strategy, where they should sit with the investor and see try to understand what the investor needs and try to provide something that fits the needs of the investor. So that's one takeaway. The second takeaway, I was a bit frustrated. I mean, maybe it's because I'm coming from the trading industry, but I didn't find them so creative, not really thinking out of the box as a general flavor, and like a bit of a heavy traditional industry that needs to be shaked a bit. But this again is maybe because I'm coming from the trading, and not only trading, from the physical trading side of the business, which requires a lot of creativity because you deal with a lot of complexity, and you can only be successful if you are super creative. The other thing is the whole conversation about the fees, because I mean, I think, and I think I'm not the only one, I think there are most of the investors, I would say the first, what we call first money generation, which are actually people that earn their own money. They were not born with inheritance, and normally those people are very hands-on, and very much involved in their investment strategies. And when I sit down with any of them, we share the same opinion that the fees, sometimes are really not justified, and I think this is going to change. And I think this move over the last years now with all these new banks and all these digital platforms, etc., will definitely shake the marketplace in that sense, and actually in the direction of in a good direction for the consumer, for the investor, because I think this will bring down the fees.
And also give people more choice. You have different
exactly
different options,
and
people have
of
to
course
compete with
and
each other
competition
now.
exactly and I think it's a very good thing. And I mean, the other takeaway, I can be very open with you, I mean, out of the 15 counterparts I met, and I met them in person as well, only one had a woman in the team.
Really?
So I've spent actually like a whole year doing this beauty contest and meeting again, coming from this trading industry where I was all the time with men, and there was only one counterpart that actually had, and when I say woman, I mean, I'm talking decision making. I'm not talking the assistant that is going to come and serve you the coffee.
High up,
and that actually, and then that made me realize.
Is that something that you realized when you were doing it, or is it something that you thought about before going and you?
To be honest with you, I realized it while doing it. Because again, I'm coming from the trading industry, but trading and mining industry are very, very male-dominated industries. Because there is also, as I was saying, a part of this physical part, because to go and work on the ground in the mine, or there are some eventually or potentially some physical. But in finance, I thought things were more advanced because you don't have that physical, let's say,
it's just
thing.
Mind.
And honestly, I knew there wasn't a parity out there, this for sure, I knew it, but I was expecting at least to see, I don't know, I was expecting maybe to see out of 15 counterparts, but there was only one company who had actually a woman in there.
Oh my God, it's shocking.
And I'm not talking about the presence of women at the board level, because that's another conversation as well. And I mean, most of these players. Well, yes, it was not so long ago, because it was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. So it's very recent. Yeah, right. I was extremely, let's say, I was very, very surprised, and I mean, I tried to find it, because sometimes you get an explanation that, yeah, but in that sector or in that industry we can't find really women. But I mean, when we talk about finance, that's definitely not the case. You have plenty of
you have many women in finance.
Talents,
I mean, maybe exactly.
Yeah.
Our brains are just as good.
Yeah.
If not better. Okay, so and now what led you to Marmot?
Well, I just gave you the. I gave you a portion of the answer by telling you that I was missing. I did this beauty contest and I was not, I didn't have someone in front of me that had women or understood the need of it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I met Tom.
Okay.
And actually I did spend regularly time with Tom because I enjoyed discussing with him and with the whole team as well. And I could see actually that the vision was definitely
something you could align with.
Exactly, aligned with the. So this is how that was my first, let's say, interaction with my Marmot in that specific context that I mentioned to you. And then when Tom offered me the opportunity to be an advisory board member of the company, I mean, for me, I accepted it within a second because I do definitely feel very proud to support Marmot actually in and its community to make an impact actually by empowering.
No, and especially you who has so much experience. You can teach so many women out there. I mean, so many young women, I think, like myself, honestly, are so interested about finance and don't know how to get into it. So it's so interesting for me to sit here with you and hear about all of your past and your experiences and everything you had to go through. And
yeah, I mean, I think it's very much what I mean when I say community. It's very much that, and it's also about sharing. Because I have maybe experiences that you don't have. You have experiences that I would not have. And it's not only about age as well. I think that, and this is something also very powerful in Marmot. You have the whole age group is represented, and that's another strength. And as I said, I was super proud and honored to join this really amazing adventure. And I think it feels very good, and for me very, let's say, proper to join actually a community that aims really at making an impact by empowering women, but not only women. It's really allowing all gender identities and expressions basically to thrive financially, and ultimately actually changing the lives of people to the better. Absolutely. And this is why I'm here.
And we're
trying to contribute a little bit
well, you are
to that.
No, like I said, honestly, just sharing your experience is already going a big way. If you had one piece of advice for a young woman who wanted to, pursue a career in finance and get to the point where you are now, what would you say?
That's a very good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, I mean, for me, what I would say, I think what is key is really self-confidence and be self-confident, believe in yourself, be bold, think and drink. And not drink. Yeah, you can also. Sometimes it helps actually to think. You can drink, that helps you to think. But I meant to say, think actually and dream big. And don't set any boundaries to yourself. I think that is extremely important. And I mean, really give yourself the means to achieve your ambitions, and everything is possible. And again, if there is a will, there is a way. And I would like maybe to. I think maybe the best way to give a message to the community in that sense, I would like to quote two actually, let's say, public persons that are really, these are two quotes that resonates a lot, did resonate all the time with myself, and I think I want to share them because I think they will resonate very much with the community we are talking to. So, I mean, the first one is by the American poet Maya Angelou, which I'm a big fan of her and the way she approached life. And she says, success is liking yourself, is liking what you do and liking how you do it. And I think this quote is extremely powerful and full of meaning. And the other one that is also that I had with me in my head all the time is a quote from the painter Jean-Michel Basquiat, and he said, "It's not who you are that holds you back; it's who you think you're not," and that is so true.
That's very true. I love that one. Wow, that's really nice.
So, yeah, I wanted to
Thank
close the
you.
conversation, I think, with these two quotes, and I hope they will resonate.
Yeah, that was
with all
really nice. We'll share them with everyone.
Thank you.
Well, anyways, thank you so much. It's been so nice having you here, and we look forward for everyone else to be able to watch this, and like this, they can have the same insights as you've given me now. And yeah, we hope to have you back again very soon.
My pleasure, Tess.
Thank you.
My pleasure. It was lovely talking to you and
Same.
sharing a bit of my life experience.
Very interesting life experience
with you.
Thank you.